The alarms screamed through the metal corridors of Bastion Prime. Red lights flashed in every direction, painting the walls in blood-colored warnings. Admiral Hyon stood in the command center, his forearms crossed tightly against his chest. His blue skin had turned pale, almost gray. Around him, dozens of officers from different alien species worked at their stations, but the fear was the same on every face. "How many ships did we lose?" Hyon asked. His voice was steady, but his eyes told a different story. Commander Jiwoo, a tall alien with 6 legs and crystal-like skin, looked up from her console. Her expression was grim. 17 more, sir. The defense line at the Cerulean Nebula is gone, completely destroyed." Hyon closed his eyes. 17 ships, 3,000 lives, gone in less than an hour. The Wrecketh swarm had been cutting through their forces for 3 cycles now, and nothing could stop them. Every battle was the same. The coalition forces would fight hard, use every weapon they had, and still the Wrecketh would push forward. They were like a disease spreading across the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. "How long until they reach the core worlds?" Hyon asked. 3 days, sir. Maybe less if they maintain their current speed." 3 days. Hyon looked at the tactical display in the center of the room. The map showed the entire coalition space, all 17 member species represented by different colored zones. But now, huge sections of that map were marked in black. 14 star systems had fallen to the Wrecketh. Billions of people had been evacuated, but millions more had not escaped in time. The Wrecketh did not take prisoners. They simply consumed everything. The command center doors opened, and diplomat Mirai walked in. She was human, though she had lived among the coalition for most of her adult life. Her dark hair was tied back, and her face showed the exhaustion that everyone felt. She had been trying to coordinate evacuations from the border worlds for days without sleep. "Admiral," she said quietly, "we need to talk." Hyon nodded and gestured to a private corner of the command center. Jiwoo followed them. When they were away from the other officers, Mirai spoke in a low voice. "There's no one left to call, is there?" she said. It was not really a question. Hyon's shoulders sagged. "No. The Peltharian Empire is defending their own borders. The Zynthian Collective has closed their space entirely. We are alone." "Not entirely," Mirai said. She looked nervous, like she was about to suggest something dangerous. "There is one option we haven't tried." Jiwoo's crystals brightened with curiosity. "What option?" Mirai took a deep breath. "My people. Humanity." The silence that followed was heavy. Hyon stared at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "Mirai, your people were barely capable of basic fusion drives when we made first contact. That was 100 years ago. Even with a century of development, what could they possibly do against the Wrecketh?" "I don't know," Mirai admitted, "but I know humans. When I left Earth, we were still learning how to travel between stars. But we learned fast, Admiral. Faster than any species you'd ever seen. The Coalition called us primitive and broke off contact after the first meeting. But what if we're not primitive anymore?" Jiwoo leaned forward. "You really think they could help?" "I think they're the only ones who might answer our call," Mirai said. "Everyone else has abandoned us. What do we have to lose?" Hyon was quiet for a long time. He thought about all the species in the Coalition, all the proud civilizations that had built great empires among the stars, and now they were losing everything to the Wrecketh. Pride seemed like a foolish thing to hold on to when extinction was 3 days away. "Send the message," he said finally. Mirai's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "No," Hyon said honestly. "But you're right. We have nothing left to lose. Send a distress call to human space. Tell them what we face. Tell them we need help." Mirai nodded and hurried to the communications station. Jiwoo moved closer to Hyun. "Do you really think they'll come?" she asked quietly. "I think they won't even receive the message in time," Hyun said. "Human space is 3 weeks away at maximum speed. The Vrekith will reach our core worlds in 3 days, but at least we will have tried everything." Across the command center, Mirai worked frantically at the communications panel. She composed the message carefully, explaining the situation in simple terms. The Vrekith swarm was destroying the coalition. Billions of lives were at stake. Any help would be appreciated. She included tactical data about the Vrekith, their weapons, their numbers. Then she broadcast it toward human space on all frequencies. "Message sent," she called out. Hyun nodded. "Thank you, diplomat. Now we prepare for the final defense." The next hours were a blur of activity. Every available ship was recalled to Bastion Prime. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Evacuation ships were loaded with civilians. The coalition was preparing for the end. Hyun barely slept. He walked through the station talking to his officers, trying to give them hope even though he had little himself. He visited the medical bay where wounded soldiers from the last battle were being treated. He stood in the observation deck and looked out at the stars, wondering if this was the last time the coalition would exist. On the second day, the forward scouts reported that the Vrekith had entered the Meridian system. They were 12 hours away from Bastion Prime. Hyun ordered all remaining ships to form a defensive line. It would not be enough. They all knew it would not be enough, but they would fight anyway. That was all they had left. Jiwoo approached him in the command center. "Sir, we're detecting something strange." "What kind of strange?" "Spatial distortions, coming from the direction of human space. Our sensors can't identify it. It's not any FTL signature we recognize." Hyun felt a small spark of something he had not felt in days. Hope. Could it be the humans? "I don't see how," Jiwoo said. "The message was only sent 36 hours ago. Even if they received it instantly and left immediately, they couldn't be here yet. Not with any technology we know about." "Keep tracking it," Hyun ordered, "and increase scanner range. I want to know what that is." The distortions grew stronger over the next few hours. The science team was baffled. Whatever was coming was moving fast, faster than should be possible. And it was big, very big. Mirai stood next to Hyun, staring at the sensor readouts. "It could be them," she whispered. "After only 36 hours?" Hyun said. "That's impossible." "For us, maybe," Mirai said. "But humans always surprised us. Even 100 years ago, they did things differently than everyone else. They thought differently. What if they found a way?" Before Hyun could respond, the tactical officer shouted across the command center. "Sir, the Vrekith motherships have entered the system. 3 capital ships and 200 escorts. They'll be in weapons range in 20 minutes. Hyun straightened his uniform and moved to the center of the command center. This was it, the final battle. He opened a channel to all coalition ships. "All vessels. This is Admiral Hyun. Today we make our stand. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every species in this galaxy. We fight so that others may live. Whatever happens, we will not surrender. We will not run. Today, we show the universe what the coalition stands for." The channel closed. Around him, officers prepared for battle. And somewhere in the distance, something unknown was rushing toward them through the darkness of space. The message reached Earth's orbital headquarters at 0600 hours, right in the middle of a routine morning briefing. Fleet Admiral Doyen was reviewing supply reports when the priority alert flashed on every screen in the room. The sudden noise made several junior officers jump, but Doyen simply set down his tablet and looked at the main display. "Report," he said calmly. Captain Junho, a lean man with sharp eyes and quick fingers, pulled up the incoming transmission. "Distress call, sir. Origin point is Coalition space. It's from the Tralvex Coalition." Doyon leaned forward. the Coalition. They had met humanity once, 100 years ago, and had quickly dismissed Earth as a backwater planet full of primitives. The meeting had not gone well. The Coalition representatives had been polite but condescending, treating humans like children who had just learned to walk. They had promised to check back in a few centuries, then had never contacted Earth again. "What do they want?" Doyen asked. Junho played the message. Diplomat Mireille's voice filled the room, and everyone listened in silence. She explained the situation simply and directly. The Vrekith swarm was destroying the Coalition. 14 systems had fallen. 3 days until the core worlds would be attacked. Any help would be appreciated. When the message ended, the room was quiet. Doyen studied the tactical data that came with the message. The Vrekith had overwhelming numbers and brutal tactics. They were not interested in negotiation or peace. They simply consumed everything in their path. "How far away is Coalition space?" Doyen asked. 21 days at standard FTL speed, sir," Junho said. Then he paused. 14 hours by slipspace. Doyen nodded slowly. Slipspace, the technology that had changed everything for humanity. While the galaxy used traditional faster-than-light drives that bent space around ships, humans had developed something different. Slipspace punched holes directly through normal space, allowing ships to travel enormous distances almost instantly. It was dangerous, and it required enormous amounts of energy, but it worked. "Send a message to the Council," Doyen said. "Emergency session. We need a decision within the hour." The Council met in a secure conference room. 12 representatives from Earth's major governments appeared on screens around the table. Doyen stood at the head and presented the situation quickly. The Coalition was dying. They had asked for help. Earth could reach them in time, but only by committing significant military resources. The debate was shorter than Doyen expected. 12 minutes. Some representatives argued that the Coalition had ignored humanity for a century and did not deserve help now. Others argued that innocent people were dying and Earth had the power to save them. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Earth would respond. Doyen returned to the command center and immediately began issuing orders. "Contact Captain Minho aboard the Soul's Hammer. Tell him to prepare his battle group for immediate deployment. Full combat loadout. We leave in 4 hours." Junho nodded and began working. Across Earth's orbit, 47 warships received activation orders. Crews that had been on standby began boarding their vessels. Weapons systems were powered up. Slipspace drives began their charging sequences. Captain Minho received his orders while doing maintenance checks on his ship's main reactor. He was a compact man with steady hands and a calm voice that never seemed to rise, even in combat. He had commanded the Soul's Hammer for 6 years and knew every centimeter of the massive warship. "Battle group deployment?" he asked over the comm. "Where are we going?" "Coalition space," came the reply. "They're under attack and requested help. Admiral Doyen is putting you in command of the expeditionary force." Minho was quiet for a moment. "The Coalition. The ones who called us primitive." "The very same, sir." "Interesting. What's the situation?" They briefed him on the Vrekith swarm. Minho listened carefully, asking questions about enemy capabilities and tactics. When the briefing ended, he went to the bridge and called his senior staff. Commander Sora arrived first. She was the weapons officer, and she had been waiting for years to field test humanity's latest military innovations in real combat. Her eyes were bright with anticipation. "We're actually going to fight," she said. "We're going to help," Minho corrected gently. "There's a difference." Lieutenant Bora came next, the youngest member of the senior staff. She handled communications and had studied dozens of alien languages in preparation for the day when humanity would interact more with the galaxy. This was her chance. "Have you ever met anyone from the Coalition?" she asked Minho. "Once. Minho said. Long time ago. They seemed to think we were interesting in the way you'd find a talking pet interesting. I got the impression they weren't taking us seriously. Should we take them seriously? Sora asked. Minho considered the question. They built an empire across 17 species. They've been exploring space for thousands of years. Yes, we should take them seriously. But that doesn't mean they were right about us. The Soul's hammer was ready 3 hours and 47 minutes after receiving orders. 46 other ships reported ready status shortly after. The battle group assembled in high orbit, an impressive display of human engineering. Each ship was different, designed for specific roles, but all of them shared the same sleek design and the same dangerous capabilities. Admiral Doyen's face appeared on the main screen. Captain Minho, you are authorized to use whatever force you deem necessary to protect Coalition civilians and stop the Vrekith advance. Rules of engagement are flexible. This is first contact with a hostile alien species, so be ready for anything. Understood, sir, Minho said. What about the Coalition themselves? Try not to step on their toes, Doyen said with a slight smile. But remember, you're there to save them, not ask their permission. They called for help. We're providing it. Yes, sir. One more thing, Captain. This is humanity's first real appearance on the galactic stage in a century. Make it count. The channel closed. Minho turned to his crew. All hands prepare for slipspace jump. Navigation, plot the most direct route to Coalition space. Weapons, I want all systems ready the moment we exit slipspace. Communications, prepare a message for the Coalition. Keep it simple. Bora worked at her station. What should the message say, sir? Minho thought for a moment. Tell them, arrival in 14 hours. That's all? That's all they need to know. The message was sent, punching through normal space on tight beam transmission. Then Minho gave the order, and reality tore open in front of the human fleet. Space folded. Normal physics stopped making sense for a brief moment. The 47 warships slipped through the gap between dimensions and began moving faster than light, faster than anything the Coalition had ever built. Inside the Soul's hammer, the crew went about their duties with practiced efficiency. They checked weapon systems, ran combat drills, studied the tactical data about the Vrekith. Minho walked through the ship, talking to his people, making sure everyone understood what they were about to do. In the weapons bay, Sora was running final checks on the railguns. These weapons accelerated projectiles to a fraction of light speed, turning simple metal slugs into devastating kinetic weapons. The Coalition used energy weapons almost exclusively. They would be surprised by how effective old-fashioned ballistic weapons could be when fired fast enough. How are we looking? Minho asked. Perfect, sir, Sora said. All systems are functioning above expected parameters. The new targeting computers are especially impressive. We can track and engage 200 individual targets simultaneously. Let's hope we don't need to track 200 targets, Minho said. Sora smiled. Let's hope we do, sir. I've been waiting for this. In the communications center, Bora was monitoring frequencies, trying to pick up any chatter from Coalition space. There was a lot of traffic, most of it encrypted, but the tone was clear even through the security. The Coalition was scared. I'm picking up their fleet movements, Bora reported. They're forming a defensive line at a place called Meridian System. Looks like they're preparing for a major battle. How long until we arrive? Minho asked. 11 hours, sir. Keep monitoring. Let me know if anything changes. The hours passed slowly. The human fleet moved through slipspace, a journey that would have taken weeks by conventional means. Minho spent most of the time reviewing tactical plans with his officers. They discussed different scenarios, different ways the battle might unfold. But they all knew that no plan survived contact with the enemy. They would have to adapt. Finally, with 1 hour remaining until arrival, Minho called the entire battle group to general quarters. Every ship went to full combat status. Shields were charged. Weapons were armed. Every crew member was at their station. Minho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Hammer and looked at his crew. They were ready. They had trained for this. Humanity had spent 100 years preparing for the day when they would have to prove themselves to the galaxy. That day had arrived. "All ships," Minho said over the fleet channel. "We are about to enter an active combat zone. Remember your training. Watch your sectors. Protect each other. And remember, we're not here to conquer. We're here to help. Let's show them what humans can do." The countdown began. 60 seconds until exit from slip space. Minho took a deep breath and settled into his command chair. Somewhere ahead, the coalition was fighting for survival. In a few moments, they would have unexpected allies. The coalition fleet hung in space like a broken shield. 73 ships remained from what had once been a force of 300. They formed a loose defensive line across the Meridian system, their weapons pointed toward the approaching darkness. Every captain knew this would be their last battle. They would fight anyway. Admiral Hyon stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the tactical display. The Rekith were coming, 3 massive motherships, each one larger than anything the coalition had ever built. Around them swarmed 200 smaller vessels, like insects around a corpse. They were 4 hours away. "Status report," Hyon said. Commander Jiwoo moved from station to station, gathering information. "All ships report ready, sir. Civilian evacuation from the border worlds is 92% complete. The remaining 8% either refused to leave or couldn't be reached in time." Hyon felt the weight of that 8%. Millions of people who would die when the Vrekith reached the core worlds. He pushed the thought away. He needed to focus on the battle ahead. Diplomat Mirai stood near the back of the bridge, watching the empty space where she had sent the distress call. 2 days had passed since the message went to Earth. She knew it was probably useless. Even if humans had received the message, even if they had ships that could help, they were too far away. But still, she watched and hoped. "Mirai," Hyon called softly. She turned to face him. "Tell me about human warfare. You lived among them. What are they like in battle?" Mirai thought carefully before answering. "When I left Earth, they were still fighting each other. Small wars, territorial disputes. But even then, I noticed something. Humans don't like long battles. They prefer quick, decisive strikes. Overwhelming force applied at the right moment. They call it shock and awe." "Shock and awe," Jiwoo repeated. "Interesting concept." "They also adapt very quickly," Mirai continued. "In human history, wars were often won not by the side with better weapons at the start, but by the side that learned and changed faster during the fighting. Humans are very good at learning from mistakes." "But you left 100 years ago," Hyon said. "What are they like now?" "I don't know," Mirai admitted. "That's what scares me and excites me. 100 years for humans might have changed everything." The bridge fell quiet again. Officers worked at their stations, preparing for the battle. Hyon moved to the main viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vrekith were coming to end everything the coalition had built. Suddenly, alarms started blaring. The sensor officer shouted across the bridge. "Sir, spatial distortions! Multiple readings, they're massive!" Hyon spun around. "Where?" "Behind us, sir! Between our position and coalition space!" Jiwoo pulled up the sensor data. Her crystals flashed with confusion. "This doesn't make sense. The distortion pattern is unlike anything in our database. It's not any FTL signature we recognize." Mirai moved forward, her heart pounding. "Could it be them?" "I don't see how," Hyon said. But there was something in his voice now. Not quite hope, but maybe the beginning of it. "The message was sent less than 40 hours ago." "Then what is it?" Jiwoo asked. "I don't know. Increase sensor resolution. I want every detail." The science team worked frantically. The distortions were growing stronger by the minute. Whatever was coming was big and moving incredibly fast. The energy readings were off the scale. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "the Rekith have detected the distortions too. They're slowing down." Hyun felt a grim satisfaction. If the Rekith were concerned, that meant the distortions were significant. "Keep all weapons locked on the Rekith. Whatever is coming, we don't know if it's friend or enemy yet." The minutes crawled by. The distortions intensified. Ships throughout the Coalition fleet reported the same readings. Something was about to arrive, and it was like nothing they had ever seen before. Mireille stood at the sensor station, watching the data stream past. She had studied human science before she left Earth. She knew they were experimenting with different types of faster-than-light travel. What if they had succeeded? What if they had found something better than the drives everyone else used? 2 minutes until whatever it is arrives, Jiwoo announced. Hyun opened a channel to all Coalition ships. "All vessels, maintain combat readiness. Unknown contact approaching our position. Do not fire unless fired upon. All shields to maximum." The bridge crew tensed. Even Mirai found herself holding her breath. The distortions were now visible on the main view screen, reality itself seeming to bend and twist in front of them. "1 minute," Jiwoo said. "The Rekith have stopped their advance," the tactical officer reported. "They're holding position." 30 seconds. The entire bridge was silent. Every eye was on the view screen. The distortions had become a swirling vortex of bent light and twisted space. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. 10 seconds. 9, 8. Mireille whispered a prayer in her native language. "Please let it be them. Please let them come." 3, 2, 1. Reality tore open. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. One moment there was empty space. The next moment, 47 ships appeared in perfect formation. They were sleek and deadly, their hulls colored in dark gray that seemed to absorb light. Each ship bristled with weapons of designs the Coalition had never seen. And at the center of the formation was a massive warship that dwarfed even Hyun's flagship. For a long moment, nobody on the Coalition bridge could speak. They simply stared at the impossible sight before them. "Identify those ships," Hyun finally managed to say. The sensor officer's hands shook as she worked. "Sir, I'm reading human life signs. Those are human ships." Mireille felt tears running down her face. They came. They actually came. "How did they get here so fast?" Jiwoo asked. "The message was sent less than 2 days ago. This is impossible." "Apparently not for humans," Hyun said quietly. He was staring at the human fleet with an expression that mixed shock, relief, and something else, maybe respect. "Open a channel to them." "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," the communications officer said. "Audio only." "Put it through." A calm, steady voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect Coalition standard language. "This is Captain Minho of the human vessel Soul's Hammer. This system is now under human protection. All hostile forces are advised to withdraw immediately. This is your only warning." The words were simple, but the confidence in them was absolute. This was not a request or a bluff. It was a statement of fact. "Should we respond?" the communications officer asked. Before Hyun could answer, the tactical officer shouted, "Sir, the Rekith are advancing! All 3 motherships are moving toward the human fleet." Mirai watched the tactical display. The Rekith had encountered the Coalition and crushed them repeatedly. They had never met resistance they couldn't overcome. They probably thought these new ships would be just as easy to destroy. She knew they were wrong. The human fleet didn't move. They held their perfect formation, waiting. Then another transmission came through, this time on a tight beam directed at the Coalition fleet only. "Coalition forces, this is Captain Minho. Clear the engagement zone immediately. Move to a minimum safe distance of 50,000 kilometers. Do not interfere with our operations. Humanitarian support will be available after the engagement concludes." The voice was still calm, still polite, but it was also clearly an order, not a suggestion. Ion hesitated only for a second. All ships, pull back. 50,000 kilometers. Maintain battle readiness, but do not engage. Sir, are we just going to let them fight alone? Jiwoo asked. Hyun watched the human ships on his view screen. They were still not moving, still waiting calmly as the Wrecketh swarm rushed toward them. I think they prefer it that way, and after getting here from Earth in less than 2 days, I'm inclined to trust their capabilities. The coalition fleet began its withdrawal, moving back from the front line. It felt wrong to Hyun to retreat while others fought, but he also recognized that his ships were badly damaged and low on weapons. They would be more useful staying out of the way. As the coalition pulled back, Mireille moved to stand next to Hyun. They both watched the view screen in silence. You were right, Hyun said quietly. They came. I wasn't sure they would, Mireille admitted. 100 years is a long time. What do you think has changed? Mireille looked at the human fleet, at the powerful warships that had appeared from nowhere. Everything, she said. I think everything has changed. The Wrecketh were now 2 minutes from weapons range. Their plasma lances would reach the human fleet first, the same weapons that had destroyed coalition dreadnoughts with single hits. Mirai wanted to warn them, to tell them about the Wrecketh weapons. But something stopped her. The humans knew what they were facing. They had received the tactical data with the distress call. They had come anyway, confident and prepared. They didn't need warnings from the coalition. 1 minute to engagement range, the tactical officer announced. Hyun's 4 arms were crossed tight. Jiwoo's crystals were dim with worry. Every officer on the bridge was tense, waiting to see what would happen next. The Wrecketh opened fire first. Hundreds of plasma bolts streaked across space toward the human fleet, enough destructive power to vaporize a small moon. The coalition officers braced themselves, expecting to see the human ships explode. Instead, something impossible happened. The human shields activated, creating shimmering barriers around each ship. The plasma bolts hit the shields and simply stopped, their energy dissipating harmlessly against the barrier. Not a single bolt got through. Their shields held, Jiwoo whispered. The Wrecketh plasma lances didn't even scratch them. Then the human fleet opened fire, and the coalition saw what real warfare looked like. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Hammer and watched the Wrecketh plasma fire splash uselessly against his shields. The tactical display showed every enemy vessel, their positions, their weapons status, their projected movements. His ship's computer had already calculated the optimal firing solution for each target. Shield strength? Minho asked calmly. 98%, sir, Commander Sora reported from the weapons station. Their plasma weapons are powerful but unfocused. Our shield geometry is dispersing the energy efficiently. Good. How many targets can you track simultaneously? Sora's fingers flew across her console. All 203 enemy vessels, sir. The targeting computer is handling it easily. Minho nodded. He had expected nothing less. Humanity had spent a century developing weapons and defense systems specifically designed to fight wars in space. The coalition had spread their research across dozens of technologies. Humans had focused on one thing: how to win battles decisively and quickly. The Wrecketh motherships were still advancing, their smaller escort vessels spreading out in what they probably thought was an attack formation. To human eyes, it was clumsy and predictable. The Wrecketh had clearly never faced an opponent who could match their firepower. Lieutenant Bora, open a channel to the Coalition fleet, Minho ordered. Channel open, sir. Coalition forces, you are in the engagement zone. Clear immediately. This is your final warning. On his tactical display, Minho watched the coalition ships pulling back. They were moving slowly, their damaged engines struggling. He made a mental note to offer engineering assistance after the battle. The coalition fleet is clear, sir, Bora reported. Distance to enemy? 15,000 kilometers and closing. Minho took a slow breath. This was it. Humanity's first combat engagement with a hostile alien species. Everything that came after would be shaped by what happened in the next few minutes. He needed to send a clear message, not just to the Rekith, but to everyone watching. All ships, this is Minho. Prepare to engage. Doctrine 7. Maximum efficiency. Minimum collateral damage. We're not here to be cruel, we're here to stop them. Acknowledgements came back from all 46 ships in his battle group. Every captain knew their role. Every weapons officer had their targets. They had drilled this scenario 100 times in simulation. The Rekith fired again. More plasma bolts, more missiles, more kinetic rounds. The human shields absorbed everything. The gap between the two fleets closed to 10,000 kilometers. Weapons range, sir, Sora said. Her voice was eager. All ships, Minho said. Weapons free. The Soul's hammer fired first. Her railguns accelerated tungsten slugs to 30% of light speed in less than a second. The projectiles crossed the distance to the first Rekith mothership almost instantly. They hit with the force of small nuclear weapons. The mothership's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten slugs punched straight through the hull, creating massive holes that vented atmosphere and debris into space. Secondary explosions rippled along the mothership's length as the projectiles destroyed vital systems. The other human ships opened fire in perfect synchronization. Railguns, particle beams, plasma cannons, and missile salvos all launched together. The tactical precision was surgical. Each weapon was aimed at specific targets, specific weak points in the Rekith ships. The second Rekith mothership never got a chance to maneuver. 3 human destroyers hit it simultaneously from different angles. Their directed energy weapons sliced through the massive vessel like a hot knife through butter. The mothership broke apart in the middle, its 2 halves spinning away into space. The escort vessels tried to scatter, but the human targeting computers tracked every movement. Smart missiles, each one equipped with its own AI, chased down the Rekith fighters. When the Rekith tried electronic countermeasures, the missiles adapted in real time, changing their attack patterns until they found a way through. Point defense grids on the human warships created overlapping fields of fire that nothing could penetrate. Rekith missiles and fighters exploded by the dozens as they tried to close with the human fleet. The defensive fire was so thick and so accurate that it looked like a solid wall of light. The third Rekith mothership, seeing its sister ships destroyed, tried to retreat. Its massive engines flared as it turned away from the battle. It was fast, but not fast enough. "Don't let it escape," Minho ordered. 4 human cruisers broke formation and pursued. Their weapons fired in carefully calculated bursts, each shot aimed at the mothership's engine sections. One by one, the Rekith vessel's drive systems exploded. Crippled and powerless, the mothership drifted in space. From start to finish, the engagement lasted 4 minutes and 33 seconds. 2 Rekith motherships destroyed, 1 disabled. All 200 escort vessels either destroyed or fleeing. 0 human casualties. Minho looked at his tactical display. The battle was over. The Rekith threat to this system was eliminated. "Cease fire," he ordered. "All ships, combat status to standby. Begin search and rescue operations. If any Rekith survived, I want them found and given medical attention." "Sir," Sora said carefully, "they were trying to exterminate the Coalition." "I know," Minho said, "but we're better than that. We protect people, even our enemies after they're defeated. That's what makes us different." Lieutenant Bora was staring at her console with wide eyes. "Sir, I'm receiving hundreds of transmissions from the Coalition fleet. They're all asking the same question. How did we do that?" Minho smiled slightly. "Tell them we'll be happy to explain later. Right now we have work to do. Open a channel to the disabled Rekith mothership." Channel open, sir. This is Captain Minho of the human fleet. You are defeated but not destroyed. Your escort vessels are fleeing. You have lost this battle. I am offering you terms. Surrender now and we will provide medical assistance to your crew. Attempt to continue fighting and we will destroy your ship completely. You have 60 seconds to respond. The bridge was quiet while they waited. Minho counted down the seconds in his head. At 58 seconds, the Rekith responded. The voice was harsh and clicking, translated by the ship's computer. We accept. No more fighting. Wise decision, Minho said. Stand by for boarding parties. Any hostile action will be met with immediate termination. Captain Minho out. He turned to his crew. Prepare Marines for boarding operations. Medical teams on standby. Treat the Rekith wounded with the same care you'd give our own people. Yes, sir, Bora said. Minho opened a channel to the Coalition fleet. Coalition forces, this is Captain Minho. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We're beginning humanitarian operations for survivors. Please return to your previous positions. We'll need to coordinate relief efforts for your damaged vessels. On the view screen, he could see the Coalition ships slowly moving back toward their original defensive line. They were moving even slower now, as if the crews couldn't quite believe what they had just witnessed. Sir, Sora said quietly, the Coalition is hailing us. It's Admiral Hyun. Put him through. The view screen changed to show the inside of a Coalition bridge. Admiral Hyun stood in the center, his 4 arms hanging loosely at his sides. His expression was one of complete shock. Behind him, other alien officers stared with similar expressions. Captain Minho, Hyun said slowly, I am Admiral Hyun of the Coalition Defense Force. We thank you for your assistance. You're welcome, Admiral, Minho said. Sorry it took us so long to get here. 40 hours is longer than we prefer for emergency responses. 40 hours, Hyun repeated. You traveled from Earth to Coalition space in 40 hours. Closer to 38, actually. We spent some time preparing before we left. Hyun was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Softer. Captain, when we last met your people, 100 years ago, you were struggling to explore your own solar system. What happened? Minho considered his answer carefully. You showed us we weren't alone in the universe, Admiral. We took that lesson seriously. We knew that someday we might need to defend ourselves or help others who needed defending. So we prepared. We studied. We built. We got ready for this day. In 100 years, you surpassed us, Hyun said. Surpassed everyone in the Coalition. How is that possible? Different priorities, maybe, Minho said. While the Coalition was maintaining a large empire, we were focused on a single goal. Be ready when needed. Today, we were needed. Another voice came from off-screen on the Coalition bridge. Captain Minho, this is Diplomat Mirai. I'm human like you. I've been living with the Coalition. Diplomat Mirai, Minho said warmly. We received your distress call. Thank you for including the tactical data. It was very helpful. I can't believe you came, Mirai said. Her voice was thick with emotion. I sent that message thinking it was hopeless. But you came anyway. Of course we came, Minho said simply. You asked for help. What else would we do? The question hung in the air. It was so simple, so obvious to Minho. But looking at the shocked faces on the Coalition bridge, he realized it wasn't obvious to everyone. Maybe that was another difference between humans and the rest of the galaxy. Admiral Hyun, Minho said, I'd like to dock with your flagship. We have a lot to discuss. Also, my medical teams report you have significant casualties. We'd like to help with that. You've done enough already, Hyun said. With respect, Admiral, we've barely started. This system is secure, but the Rekith are a bigger problem than one fleet. We need to coordinate a larger response, and my commander, Fleet Admiral Doyen, is already on his way to begin formal discussions with your leadership. He should arrive in about 10 hours. 10 hours, Hyon said numbly. From Earth. That's right. In the meantime, let's get your wounded treated and your ships repaired. We brought supplies and equipment. It's what neighbors do. Minho closed the channel and turned to his crew. They were all grinning. They knew what they had just accomplished. In less than 5 minutes of combat, humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, not as conquerors, not as rivals, but as the people you wanted on your side when things got bad. Good work, everyone, Minho said. But this is just the beginning. Let's get to work. The docking port between the Soul's Hammer and Admiral Hyon's flagship connected with a soft metallic click. Captain Minho stood in the airlock with Lieutenant Bora and 4 Marines in dress uniforms. This was a diplomatic meeting as much as a military one, and first impressions mattered. The airlock doors opened, revealing Admiral Hyon, Commander Jiwoo, and Diplomat Mireille waiting on the other side. For a moment, everyone simply looked at each other. Then Minho stepped forward and offered his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Admiral Hyon, thank you for receiving us. Hyon stared at the offered hand for a moment before reaching out with one of his 4 arms. His grip was tentative, uncertain. Captain Minho, welcome aboard. Mireille moved forward and shook Minho's hand firmly, her eyes wet with tears. It's good to see another human. I've been away from Earth for so long. We'll make sure you can visit home soon, Minho said gently. If you want to, that is. I'd like that. Hyon led them through the corridors of his ship to a conference room. Along the way, Minho observed everything. The Coalition ship was impressive in its own way, built with elegant curves and decorative elements that showed centuries of tradition. But he also noticed the damage. Scorch marks on walls, hastily repaired panels. This ship had been through hell. The conference room had a large window showing the space outside. Minho could see both fleets, Coalition and human, now working together. Human medical shuttles were moving between damaged Coalition vessels. Engineering teams were already beginning repairs on the worst damaged ships. Your people work quickly, Hyon observed. We brought plenty of supplies, Minho said, and we believe in helping our allies. Are we allies? Hyon asked. The question wasn't hostile, just genuinely curious. A few hours ago, we were strangers. 100 years ago, we dismissed your people as primitives. Minho sat down at the conference table. A lot can change in 100 years, Admiral. You made a mistake about us back then. That's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what happens next. Jiwoo leaned forward. Captain, I have to ask, how did you develop such advanced technology so quickly? Your weapons, your shields, your faster-than-light travel. It should have taken centuries. It did take centuries, Minho said, just not ours. We studied everyone else's work. Every species in the galaxy has been developing technology for thousands of years. All that knowledge is out there if you know where to look. We're good at learning from others, and when we found gaps in the existing technology, we filled them with our own innovations. Like slipspace travel, Mireille said. Exactly. The Coalition uses traditional warp drives. They bend space around the ship. It works, but it's slow. We asked a different question. What if we didn't bend space? What if we just skipped it entirely? Slipspace was the answer. And your weapons? Hyon asked. Minho shrugged. The galaxy relies heavily on energy weapons, plasma, lasers, particle beams. They're effective, but they have limitations. We still use those weapons, but we also kept developing kinetic weapons. Railguns, missiles, old-fashioned projectiles fired at very high speeds. When you shoot a chunk of metal fast enough, no shield designed to stop energy can block it. Simple but effective, Jiwoo said, with what might have been admiration. That's humanity in general, Minho said with a slight smile. We like solutions that work, even if they're not elegant. The door opened, and a human medical officer entered. She saluted Minho quickly. "Sir, thought you'd want to know. We've treated all critical casualties on the Coalition ships. No one's going to die today. The Wrecketh wounded are stable too." "The Wrecketh?" Hyun said. "You're healing them?" "Of course," Minho said. "They surrendered. That makes them prisoners of war, and prisoners have rights. We'll hold them until we can arrange a proper exchange or trial. But we won't let them suffer." Hyun was quiet for a long moment. "Captain, the Wrecketh destroyed 14 of our systems. They killed billions of our people. And you're giving them medical care." "Yes," Minho said simply. "Because if we don't, then we're no better than they are. Mercy isn't about whether someone deserves it. It's about who we choose to be." The medical officer left. The room was silent until Mirai spoke softly. "That's very human of you." "Is it?" Minho asked. "I thought it was just common decency." "Maybe it is," Hyun said. "But common decency isn't as common as it should be. Captain, I need to ask you something important. What happened here today, what your fleet did to the Wrecketh in less than 5 minutes? You could do the same to us, couldn't you?" Minho met his eyes steadily. "Yes, we could. And yet you came here to help us, not conquer us." "That's correct." "Why?" Minho thought about how to answer. Finally, he said, 100 years ago you came to Earth. You showed us we weren't alone. That changed everything for us. Even though you didn't think much of us back then, you still gave us that gift. Now we have the chance to return the favor. You asked for help. We had the power to give it. It's really that simple." Jiwoo's crystals glowed brightly. "Most species with your level of power would use it to dominate others." "Then most species are making a mistake," Minho said. "Power without purpose is just violence. We chose a better purpose." Before anyone could respond, Lieutenant Bora spoke up. "Captain, I'm receiving a message from Admiral Do-Yun. He's entering the system now." "That was fast. He must have left right after us." Bora listened to her earpiece. "He's requesting permission to join this meeting." Minho looked at Hyun. "Admiral, would you be willing to meet with our fleet admiral? He has authority to speak for Earth's government on formal matters." "Of course," Hyun said. "Any ally of yours is welcome here." 20 minutes later, Fleet Admiral Do-Yun arrived with a small delegation. He was older than Minho, with gray hair and a calm presence that filled the room. He greeted everyone formally, then sat down at the conference table. "Admiral Hyun," Do-Yun began, "I want to start by apologizing for the long delay in responding to your distress call. 40 hours is unacceptable response time for an emergency. We'll be improving our communication networks to ensure faster contact in the future." Hyun made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Admiral, you crossed half the galaxy in less than 2 days. I think your response time was more than adequate." "Still, we can do better," Do-Yun said. "Now, let's talk about the bigger situation. Captain Minho's battle group has secured this system, but the Wrecketh are a larger threat. Our intelligence suggests they have forces in at least 6 other sectors." "We know," Hyun said heavily. "We've been fighting them for months. Every battle, we lose more ships, more people. We thought this would be the end." "It won't be," Do-Yun said firmly. "Earth is committing significant military resources to eliminate the Wrecketh threat completely. We're dispatching 3 more battle groups to Coalition space. They'll arrive within the next day." "3 more groups like Captain Minho's?" Jiwoo asked. "2 are similar in size. The third is larger. In total, we'll have nearly 200 warships in Coalition space within 48 hours. The Coalition officers exchanged glances. 200 human warships, the same ships that had destroyed a Wrecketh fleet in less than 5 minutes. The strategic balance had just shifted dramatically. "That's a substantial force," Hyun said carefully. "What do you want in return for this help?" Doyen looked surprised. Want in return? Nothing. You asked for help. We're providing it. That's what the request means, isn't it? Most species would want something, Hian said. Territory, resources, favorable trade agreements. We might negotiate trade agreements later if you're interested, Doyun said. But that would be a separate discussion between equals. The military assistance is unconditional. Why? Hian asked again, the same question he had asked Minho. Doyun leaned back in his chair. Admiral, let me tell you a story. 100 years ago, your people came to Earth. You looked at us and saw primitives who had barely left their own planet. You weren't wrong. But you also gave us something incredibly valuable. You proved we weren't alone. You showed us the galaxy was full of intelligent life, of civilizations and cultures and ideas. That changed us. It gave us purpose. He paused. We spent the next century preparing, not to conquer or dominate, but to be ready when the galaxy needed us. Because we knew that someday, someone would need help. Someone would call out into the darkness asking for aid. And we wanted to be the ones who answered. Today was that day, Mireille said softly. Today was that day, Doyen agreed. You called. We answered. It's really that simple. Commander Jiwoo spoke up. But surely you see the strategic advantage you now have. Your technology is superior to anything in the Coalition. You could demand almost anything. We could, Doyun said, but we won't. Power is a tool, Commander. How you use it defines who you are. We choose to use our power to protect, not exploit. The room was quiet. Finally, Hian stood up. His 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of respect that was universal among Coalition species. Fleet Admiral Doyen, Captain Minho, on behalf of the Coalition, I thank you, not just for saving our lives, but for showing us a better way. You could have ignored our call. You could have used our weakness against us. Instead, you came to help strangers who had once dismissed you. That is true strength. Doyen stood as well. We're not strangers anymore, Admiral. As of today, humanity and the Coalition are allies. Let's make sure the galaxy knows it. Over the next hours, they discussed practical matters, fleet deployments, supply lines, coordination of forces. The human ships would eliminate the remaining Wreckith threat while helping the Coalition rebuild. Earth would share technology, but slowly and carefully, to avoid destabilizing Coalition society. In return, the Coalition would share their vast knowledge of the galaxy, their diplomatic connections, their understanding of dozens of alien cultures. It was the beginning of a partnership that would reshape the galaxy. Eventually, the meeting ended. As Minho prepared to return to his ship, Mirai pulled him aside. Captain, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Are all humans like you now? Confident, powerful, but still kind? Minho smiled. We're still human, diplomat. We have our problems, our disagreements, our flaws. But I think we learned something important over the past century. Being strong doesn't mean being cruel. Having power doesn't mean using it selfishly. Maybe that's what makes us human. I'm proud of my people, Mirai said. I left Earth 100 years ago thinking we were small and insignificant. Now I know we were just getting started. Come home soon, Minho said. Earth has changed a lot, but it's still home. Captain Minho returned to the Soul's Hammer and stood on the bridge, looking out at the fleet. Human and Coalition ships working together, repairing damage, helping each other. In the distance, he could see the remains of the Wreckith vessels, a reminder of the battle that had changed everything. Lieutenant Bora approached him. Sir, we're receiving messages from all over Coalition space. Everyone wants to know who we are, what we want, what happens next. Tell them the truth, Minho said. We're humans. We want peace. And what happens next is up to all of us, together. The galaxy had spent thousands of years watching the strong dominate the weak. Today, they learned something different. Today, they learned that the strong could choose to protect instead. That power could be used with wisdom and mercy. That help could come from unexpected places. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not with conquest or demands, but with an offer of friendship and protection. The coalition had called into the darkness, and humanity had answered with light. It was a beginning, the first chapter of a new story, written by humans and aliens together. Whatever came next, they would face it as allies, as friends, as the family they had chosen to become. The Soul's hammer turned toward the nearest coalition world, already receiving requests for assistance. Captain Minho smiled. There was a lot of work to do, but for the first time in a long while, the galaxy had hope. And hope, as humans had learned over their long history, was the most powerful weapon of all.